We're in Hadwin Arboretum. It was donated to Clark University in 1907 by Obadiah Hadwin, who was a farmer in Worcester. He was a relatively wealthy guy and he was very into horticulture, and on his farm he planted a lot of different trees. They say over 100 different kinds of trees. So when he deeded it over, it was meant to be used for the purpose of education of Clark University students in perpetuity, so that they could learn about horticulture and arboriculture and all things like that. You know, as you can see around us, it is not a highly maintained location, but it is still a location where there is a high diversity of trees. And so what we want to do today is just go through and identify some of the trees that we know are here, and then if there's anything else that is surprising, mark that down as well. And we want to identify them and see how big they are and what condition they're in, so that we can report that back to the campus. There are actually two parcels. So one was the original farm, which was called Magnolia because Hadwin himself had a fascination with magnolias, particularly I believe cucumber trees, Magnolia acuminata, and that's a really large shade tree. So as we go through, we're going to be focusing on what I'm deeming section 1 at the corner of Lovell and May, and we will see several magnolia trees, large shade trees that are still growing, probably the descendants of some of his originals. We won't necessarily be able to identify specific varieties, but we'll be able to say whether or not it's Magnolia acuminata or some other shade tree. And then in the parcel that we just came through, that was donated a little bit after Hadwin's death in 1907. It was donated about 20 years later by his daughter, who had retained the parcel, but she also donated it to Clark in hopes that they would continue to use it all for education purposes.
So the reason we're interested in this particular arboretum is because it has historical value. And what we're doing now, the project that we're working on now, has two goals. One is we'd like to inventory the trees. We'd like to look at the historical map and see what exactly still remains of that historical map. And then the second piece is we're looking at the condition of each tree. And in that way we can identify if trees need to be worked on, and if we could maybe get some volunteers to come in and help us prune the trees, or otherwise help the trees in this arboretum, and just get an idea of what we can do for future maintenance of this arboretum.